everyone that's here. We appreciate your attendance today. This is an optional parent meeting. We've labeled it appropriately as Parents of Teen Support Group, PTSG. You're going to get, we're going to meet once a month. It'll be brief, but Launch High School is a different animal. It's new to our school district. It's new to our parents, to our teachers, to our students, and to this guy. And so I was thinking that there are a few things that we could go over that could help make the transition to this awesome school a little bit easier. So a couple of things on the agenda for the year. Talking about FAFSA, college and financial aid, next month. We'll talk about projects. We'll talk about suicide prevention. We'll talk about graduation and what that might look like towards the end of next school year, or this school year rather. Connecting with our boundary high schools. That's in November. That's an important topic. It may not seem that way for you guys, but it really is for us. This new school and this new way of teaching and learning is, frankly, it's awesome. But our high schools do things differently, and they're awesome too, but we just need to make sure we have a good relationship with them, and that you guys understand what's happening at our school versus what's happening at the boundary school. So the whole intent of this, I don't know why my printer is making noise right as I'm talking. I'm not printing anything, okay? Anyhow, the intent really is not to give you one extra meeting that you need to attend, or you'll feel like you're missing something. It's just meant to help, and maybe, who knows, maybe by the end of this meeting, you guys are like, I think we're good. I think we got it all. Who knows? I've got Corey Henwood here, one of our founding fathers of Launch High School, and he's going to be really steering the discussion of this meeting. But before I turn it over to him, I want to give you a couple of reminders, a couple of things that I've been communicating with your kids. Maybe you can help reinforce some of these things. So let's see, yesterday and the day before, I sent out a reminder at the end of the day. How can we innovate, improve, and impress? And that's what Launch High School is all about. Innovation, improving on our ideas, and then just knocking it out of the park, impressing. So a couple of things. We said, check with your advisor. If you're not sure what you're supposed to be doing, every student has an advisor assigned to them. This advisor is strategically looking for the student throughout the day and checking in with them, and feeling like really like an extra parent. And so if that student needs to be redirected or helped with something, that is what that advisor is for. So if your kid is saying something and you want to be a good parent and say something like, oh, well, that doesn't sound right. How come? Yeah, just say, you know what? You should go talk to your advisor. Go talk to your advisor about that. See what they can help with. So that's just a quick one-liner that you can use on your kid. If you're unsure about something that you hear, you should go ask your advisor about that tomorrow. Go do it first thing. Our schedules are very flexible here. So we've been telling kids they can go outside if they wanted to study. If you came in the day, and maybe we'll open this up, Corey, sometime, where parents could come and look and see what it looks like during the day. It's pretty awesome. Kids are working. Maybe you don't believe me, but they seem to be working, and really, I mean, we've got people starting on projects already and throwing out really good ideas on and tying it back to the curriculum. So this is a very cool thing, but we don't want kids to just feel like they can, leave the building or do whatever they want. There is some flexibility with some, we've got to have some structure. So if they do want to go study outside under a tree or something, that's fine, as long as they've cleared it with their advisor before they go. I don't want to just see kids, roaming Park Discovery or just hanging out in the parking lot. They need to check with their advisor first. That just gives us a way to check in. We're also having them check in at the end of the day with their advisor. So that's our way of saying, oh, where did little Johnny go? He was here this morning. We haven't seen him since lunch. Anyhow, so we're trying to keep track of your kids. The other thing we've been reminding kids, it seems like the last couple of days, I don't know why, maybe it warmed up again, but we're reminding kids constantly to make sure you're wearing your mask appropriately. We've seen a lot of kids just, oh, well, I can take my mask off if I'm eating, so I'll just eat all day. Clever, but no. We want to keep the school open. Whether you think that the masks are awesome or not, it doesn't matter. We just really need your help enforcing that. We hate to be the mask police, but we do need we do need to keep the school open, and that's the ticket. So remind your kids to keep their masks on, social distance at school. There's always something to do. Parents, if your kids come home and they're telling you that they're all caught up, that's a lie. There's so much to do. They can do it. We're telling them to take breaks during the day. We don't expect them to just work 24/7, but kids are always going to have something to do. So don't feel bad as a parent to remind them and say, hey, you should do your homework. They've got homework. So if they don't think they do, give me a call. We can talk with them. I'll pull them out and we'll have a nice chat. There's always stuff. The other thing is we're sharing the building with other people. Our district technology department, for example, downstairs, and we got a business up here that we're partnering with as well. We need to keep that commons area quiet. So just letting you know what we've been telling kids, how they can innovate, improve, and impress. Mainly all of these things that I just shared are ways that they can impress. So anyhow, I gotta say, we've got the best teachers here. Every day after school, since school started, they have this little debriefing. They lock down the launch pad and they go down there and they problem solve. This is not something that I suggested they do. This is them being rock star teachers and listening to the comments that the kids make and suggestions. And they go down and say, hey, we're seeing a lot of this. How can we change it? How can we make it better? So just know the teachers have the kids' best interest at heart, and they truly do want to help and make things awesome. So wanted to let you know that we're excited about what we saw this week and last week, and we're excited to just see how this year goes. It's been really exciting. With that, I will turn it over to Corey Henwood. Thanks, Corey.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Schofield. Appreciate it. If at any point my internet acts a little funky, just let me know, because I'm kind of getting notifications that I'm popping in and out of coverage well here. So just let me know, would you? But I wanted to get started by saying how much I've enjoyed working with each of your students so far this week. That's just been such a pleasure. A great group of kids we've got at Wanch High School, and they have really just begin to dive in to the work that we're asking them to do, whether it's their online coursework or their projects, as Steve alluded to. It's just been a lot of fun. And so what we want to do tonight is give you a couple of tips of how you can help your students to be successful at Wanch High School, what it takes and what you want to be checking in on as far as how they're doing at the school and how you can support them in that. In addition, answer some questions, if any, that you have for us. So I'll get right into it. The first thing we wanted to mention that you'll start to see as of the middle of next week into the following week in Power School, you'll begin to see 2 assignments that will show up in Power School for your students in their classes. Every week to 2 weeks, our teachers will be checking in with your students, specifically with the intent of noting their pace in the class and how much progress they've made since the last check-in. And so this idea of measuring pace and progress are the 2 assignments that you'll see in Power School. One entitled Pace, which will indicate how they're doing as far as the pace to keep on pace to complete the quarter on time. and the second on progress, meaning how much progress they've made since the last check-in. You'll see a scale of 1 or 0 through 4 on each of those. 3 is the number 3 benchmark is to stay on pace and make adequate progress. 3 is what we would expect of students. 4 would be that they've gone beyond what we expect. So if they receive a 4 out of 4, it means that they are ahead of pace or have made more than adequate progress. 2 would mean that they're just falling just slightly short of what we would expect, and a 1 would mean that they're well behind what we expect, and 0 would mean that they haven't made any progress or haven't begun the course at all as far as pace goes. So what I wanted to show you is some examples of how that might happen and work out so that you're prepared for what you see in PowerSchool and hopefully answer any questions or concerns about that. So I'm going to share my screen here briefly. Let's see here. Okay. And okay, I'm assuming I'm seeing that, Mr. Schofield. If you're not, just let me know. But I wanted to share a couple things about pace and progress and how this works. If you haven't heard this already from your students, there are in each of your courses that they take at the students or at the school, there are 8 deliverables per quarter in each of their courses. Those 8 deliverables are the same format in each of the courses. They include showing proficiency in each of the 4 standards covered in the quarter. So each course at our school covers 4 standards per quarter, 4 big ideas or topics that they cover each quarter. So the way they show proficiency in those standards could either be from a pre-assessment, meaning they already understood the material and they can already pre-assess out of it, showing that they've been able to test out and show that they know that. Or they can go through a series of self-checks and learning materials to ultimately come to the end and do a post-assessment for each of those standards. Those are the kind of things that we expect, and each of those, showing proficiency in each of those topics or standards, is one of the 8 deliverables. The other 4 deliverables are that they submit 1 to 2 project proposals and 1 to 2 completed projects. It could be 1 proposal or 1 project if they cover multiple standards in that project. Otherwise, if they would be expected to do 2 projects. And those cover the 8 deliverables we'll expect per course in a quarter. Now there's 8 deliverables, and roughly a quarter normally takes a student 8 to 9 weeks in our traditional school system. So in order to stay on pace to complete a quarter's worth of work, we expect students to complete 1 of these deliverables every week. So when I mention pace, that's what I'm referring to stay on pace, that 3 level or at expectation of pace is to complete 1 of these deliverables a week. For progress, what we expect is the very same. We expect them to make adequate progress in the course to complete 1 deliverable per week. Now there's a couple scenarios that I'll showcase of how this will work. When we put these assignment scores in PowerSchool for both pace and progress, you'll notice that your student will also receive a grade in PowerSchool. I want you to view that grade as a form of temperature check on where your student's at currently in their coursework. And I don't want you to be too overly concerned with what you see if what you see is not to your liking. And I'll explain some of why you might see that. So for example, if a student is both ahead of pace and has made more than adequate progress in a week or a 2-week check-in, then you would see a 4 in pace if they're ahead of pace, and a 4 in progress if they've made more than 1 deliverable per week of progress. That's going to showcase an A grade in PowerSchool, the 4 translating to the A. But this is because they're ahead of pace. It's quite okay if they are simply on pace and they have made adequate progress, that 1 deliverable in a 1-week term. that would show as a 3 for both the pace and the progress metric, and you would actually see a grade of B. I want you to know that that's quite okay, and I'm going to explain how the ultimate grade for your students' classwork will be determined at the end of this. Okay, so that is pace and progress for a student who's simply on pace and making adequate progress every week. What about some other scenarios? For example, a student who is on pace but not quite making adequate progress since the last check-in. That's okay. Maybe you're taking a little bit of a break and you're still on pace because you did some additional work in an earlier period of the quarter. That's okay, but we want to be aware that you just haven't made quite enough progress to continue to stay on pace if you were to continue to slump in your progress. We expect students to continue to work and stay on pace. If they are both limited in both pace and progress is where we have an issue. So I'll show you one more example. A student who is slightly behind on pace, but they've made adequate progress. They're doing the work they need to get back to pace. That's, again, not in a great situation, but they're doing what they need to do to get back on target. The part where we have an issue is when you see both pace and progress are behind. That's when we offer an intervention to students and offer them more structure in their daily schedule to say, you will be asked to attend a class with both of, for example, the math teachers, if you're in this case in your math class, that you'll be attending every day until your next check-in or until you're excused by the teacher and you've shown that you are now on pace or you've made excellent progress in your class. That's where we offer that more structured intervention for students when they fall into this category. And this is where you might be rightfully concerned if your student falls into this category, into the course. However it works out, even if a student is at one point behind pace and behind progress, what will their grade be at the end of it? Once a student has mastered each of the deliverables we expect, each of those 8 deliverables, no matter how long it took them or where they ended up at what point in the course and the path they took to get there. Once they've mastered each of those, the student has completed everything we've expected them to do at or above expectations, which is really what we're talking about in a competency-based school. At that point, when they've completed all of them, your student will have an A grade in the class. And we will take whatever grade is showing in PowerSchool and replace it with an A grade for that quarter that they've completed. And then you'll see new pace and progress scores come in for the next quarter as they begin that work. So I wanted to offer that and first to answer any questions about pace and progress when it comes to your students' work in their coursework there, and how it will be reported in PowerSchool and how their ultimate grade will show up. If you'd like to unmute or ask a question in the chat, you're welcome to do that. And we'll just give, 30 seconds to a minute or so. If there's no questions, that's fine, and we can move on.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So they can decide what subjects they're working on that day, correct?
Yes, correct.
And they can work on one subject all day long if they want.
They could do that. They could do that. Yep.
Okay, so if they decide to work on one subject until that subject is done, is that a good idea, or should they be working on each class as they're on their pace and progress?
Yep. Good question. I would suggest for a student that over the course of a 2-week period or even a week period, might be even a stronger suggestion, that they make time for all of the coursework during that week. Now, if you want to say, hey, the first day I'm here, I'm going to spend the majority of my time on math, and the next day I'm going to spend more on science, social studies, and the final day more on English, that's totally fine. But I would expect that students maintain that pace and know that they're not too far behind to complete one deliverable per week in each of those classes. Just when they do that would be is fine if that's up to them, when they're ready to take that on. But I don't want to see students falling behind on pace and then kind of assuring us that, oh, I'll get to that later. I'd be a little worried for them that they may not get to it in time and would fall further behind than we would like them to.
I was just talking to a student today about that very concept. He said, well, could I just be working on this math all day today? And I said, you can, I guess. That's not healthy. No offense to mathematicians out there, but let's be honest. And then who wants to deal with that kid when they come home at the end of the day, right? So I just said, no, let's share the love and kind of spread that around. But yeah, technically the answer is yes, they could. We don't advise.
Yeah, we'd like to see them maintain at least adequate pace and progress in each of their classes when we check in with them, so that we're not intervening inappropriately. Like if they're more than capable of doing their English work, they've just put it off, then we'd be providing them a structured intervention when they really don't need it. And so we would like to see students at least maintaining that semblance of pace and getting the right progress they need to each week. Any other questions about pace and progress and what you'll see in PowerSchool and their grades?
Okay, can you tell me what the deliverables are again?
Yeah, the deliverables there are 4 standards in each class, and those 4 standards, the basics of those standards, students need to show proficiency in those, and that's primarily through their online coursework. The way they show proficiency is through some form of post-assessment, and that can take lots of different, that could look lots of different ways. For example, it could be a test or quiz, it could be a written essay, it could be a conversation with the teacher, it could take whatever form the teacher is comfortable working with the student in, but they need to show proficiency in each of those 4 standards. And then the other half of it is the projects. So they're expected to take 2 of those 4 standards and apply them through projects throughout the course of the quarter. So in theory, if they were to take 2 separate projects, they would make 2 separate proposals and then have 2 separate completed projects for a total of the other 4 deliverables. They may decide to combine both the standards into 1 proposal and 1 completed project, and that would still count for the other 2 deliverables in 1 proposal and 2 deliverables in 1 completed project. So those are the 8 deliverables in every course.
Okay, I have a question about the projects.
Yes.
Where are there certain standards you want them to choose from, or do I look on the secondary mathematics, for example, secondary mathematics 1, and find a standard that he's interested in and do a proposal on that?
So we would like them to focus on one of those 4 that are in the quarter, and the teachers have provided potential project prompts that the students could just wholesale adopt if they would like and use those prompts for their project, or they could use that as a starter and modify it to their liking, or they can totally redesign a new project that meets that same standard. But there are those 4, and of those 4 that are listed in their quarter that they're working on should be their focus of one. They want to choose 1 to 2 of those 4 to apply it through projects. And so that's where you want to focus, not necessarily the entire standards document, but the standards that are going to be used in that quarter.
Okay, and then where do I find those? Just in have him show me on his Canvas?
Yeah. If you either are an observer in the Canvas course, or if they would open that up for you, each of the courses are set up so that there's 4 modules in the course, and each of those modules relates directly to the standard or topic that they're covering. So there should be 4 modules, and therefore the 4 standards that they need to cover.
Okay, and can he pick 2 standards from the same core class, like 2 math ones?
Yes, in fact, to complete the math course for quarter credit, they would have to do 2 of those 4 in math, and 2 of the 4 in every course. Like there'll be 2 that they'll choose from every course to apply through a project. And they can actually take their projects and take 2 math standards and 2 English standards and put them together into one larger project if they'd like. So don't feel like they need to complete, for example, tons of different projects. They can complete larger projects that relate to multiple standards, and that's quite okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions about pace and progress, grades? That's the big one that we wanted to get through this evening.
I have a question, but I'm not sure if you've already covered it.
Okay, go ahead.
So what's the difference between them completing these 4 for this year versus next year? Will there be an additional 4 for each year? So there's, for math, there would be a total of, if they stayed in it for multiple years, 4 times 4.
Yeah, so there'll be an addition of 4 new standards they take on every quarter. In some cases, they are cyclical, like in subjects like English language arts, where they take on the same standards and the same skills, but in different pieces of literature in different contexts, that kind of thing. So, but generally, like in math science, where it's topical, they'll have a series of 4 standards, a whole new set of 4 standards for the next quarter, and so on as they move through the quarters and into the next course. They have a new set of standards. In language arts, for example, they have a reading, a writing standard, a grammatical, and a vocabulary standard that actually cycles through each of the quarters, but with a different context and a different focus of the literature that they're working through and the writing style that they're working through. So hopefully that helps you understand that one.
Is it a cyclical, like there's 4 per semester per subject, or is sometimes there only 2
There's
for one subject?
There's always 4 standards per course per quarter.
Per quarter, okay.
So in order to get that quarter credit, they need to show proficiency in those 4 standards and then apply the projects for the other deliverables for at least 2 of those 4 standards.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Any other questions on that one that you want to address right now? And this isn't, we can open it for more broad questions after. But if there's one more, maybe we'll take that, and then I'll just touch briefly on Live School and how you can work with your students' behavior. Okay, so as Mr. Schofield mentioned, the mission of the school and the theme that we are working with all the students on all the time is to innovate, improve, and impress. And in Live School, which is the app we use to track and positively reinforce behaviors, we've chosen behaviors that will reinforce those same ideas of innovating, improving on things, and impressing. And so we've chosen those behaviors, and our teachers are going around every day and noticing students who are exhibiting those behaviors and then giving them points in this system. The points can ultimately be used for all sorts of rewards, from extra time at lunch to being able to print out their own 3D models or toys or whatever they would like to do outside of their projects. Generally, those materials are reserved for projects at the school, but through our point system, they can use the materials for their own, their own interests entirely outside of school. So anyway, that's Live School, and for each of you, there is available to you an access code to access your own students' data in terms of this system. I'm going to showcase you a fake student who I've named after my 3-year-old. Let me just share my screen real quick, and I'll show you what the parent view looks like on that. So just 1 second here. Okay, here it comes. So this is the Live School parent version, where you can see my 3-year-old Dawson as if you were at the school. And what I can see as a parent is a timeline of the points that he's earned throughout the day. So if I choose timeline here, I can see that Dawson received points from Mr. Henwood, his father subsequently. But anyway, he received points for being self-directed and on task, for helping others. It shows you the time that that happened, which teacher gave him the feedback, that he sought feedback here, that he set goals here, that he collaborates well here. You'll see when they have lost points for taking on, exhibiting negative behaviors that detract from the mission of innovating, improving, and pressing, such as not being punctual. That's one piece here that he's lost points for, and then he's received a couple other pieces here for taking opportunities to learn and advocating for themselves for help. So these are things that our teachers, especially early on, are giving lots of positive feedback or trying to give lots of positive feedback to students. And this is a place where you can track that here under their timeline. The other piece that you can see is the available rewards under the store and how close they are to achieving those or unlocking those rewards that you could check out at your own volition. And we're actually still building much of that with our students' input as to what would be, rewarding and reinforcing for them. But I wanted you to know that this is available for you. If you didn't receive, we gave all the students an access sheet their first week here at the school so they could take it home and they could access their own live school points, and their parents would also have a code to access it. If they've lost that or didn't ever get that to you, which is, definitely possible, feel free to reach out and have them reach out to their advisor and we can print them a new one. Or if you'd like to email me or Mr. Schofield, we can make sure that's taken care of as quickly as possible so you can get access to this. This is a place for you to just check in on how they're doing day to day on those behaviors that we expect to see of a student who is self-directed and who is working through in a school that's as open as ours and so dependent on their work to stay on top and their behavior to stay on top and earn, learn and develop those essential skills of time management and self-direction and productivity. So I wanted to share that with you. Let me stop sharing my screen for a second, answer any questions that you may have on that, and then open it up generally for any other questions. Any questions on Live School? Happy to field those. Okay, well, and certainly open to answering any questions you have about the school right now. And if you felt like you've gotten your fill for tonight to know how to help your student be successful at the school in both one, tracking their academic pace and progress, how that's going to work here in a week or so when we begin those check-ins in PowerSchool, then that's great. In addition to tracking their behavior, which will help you understand that will work. I got a question here. Will the access code work on the phone app? I believe so. There's both a student and parent phone app, and it should work for you to be able to access that there. I haven't attempted that for my fake student who's not at the school, but I'm almost certain that that's how it's set up and intended to work. Good question. Any other questions we can help with? Yeah, where can we find the access code was asked. So we did print off papers with access code for both student and parent and gave them to your student their second day of school after we took on our big project. The first day with one of our business partners, the second day was more orientation into all the different aspects of launch. And at that point, we gave that paper out. If your student missed that day or lost the paper, we're happy to print it for them again and give it to them. Just simply have them ask their advisor or email them yourself, and we can make sure that we get you that access code. Well, unless Mr. Schofield has other topics he'd like to discuss, which I don't know if he does, then this would pretty much conclude our meeting. Happy to stay on with you if you have any questions you want to answer personally for the next 15-20 minutes. I can stay on and work with you on that. But this is really what we wanted to get out tonight to help you launch your student towards success at Launch High School, making sure they're developing those behaviors towards productivity and innovating, improving, impressing, and staying on pace and progress. Those are the big things that are going to help them be successful at our school. So happy to answer any other questions, but otherwise, Mr. Schofield, do you have anything further you'd like to add?
Just to add, keep an eye on your kids. You know, they're learning a lot of new stuff. I mean, at our school alone, but I know they're doing things a little bit differently at the boundary schools as well. I mean, the checking out of a Chromebook, that right there was a big to do with our school district this year, in preparation for any kind of COVID response that we need to, that we find ourselves in, as we did this last, what was it, fourth quarter this last school year. So we are ready to go should there be a reason to close schools, but we're hoping that's not the case. But just keep in mind that the kids at Launch High are learning a lot. I've had probably at least 3 conversations with kids since school started, every day, that I've had to say, hey, it's okay. It's going to be fine. We're just learning. It's going to take a minute to figure out this new mindset of building your own schedule and being flexible and planning out your school day. They're not used to that, guys. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying be easy on them at home. I'm just saying keep that in mind. They are learning a lot, and it can be stressful. So we are sure glad to have them at school, though. It's so much fun to see kids just break free and get things done. So
yeah, they certainly are learning a lot. It's fun to have them with us, of course, and you know, really important stuff that they're learning. I know this may be difficult for some of them and overwhelming at times for some of them to take on these this kind of new role of managing their own productivity and advocating for help when they need it, and all the things we want out of a self-directed student. But think how critical those skills are. I mean, these are skills. When I look at students who are successful at a university level, has little to do with their smarts and intelligence and the ability to take on the rigor there at that level. It's actually a lot more to do with the increased freedom they have at that level to make their schedule, to set time for studying, to make sure that they're attending and advocating for themselves in a space. So this is really preparing them not only for college, but also, of course, the real world, where you're expected to be productive and directed as either employee or as an entrepreneur. And so be patient with your students as they take this on, but reinforce that this is important learning, and we want to make sure that they stick with it and don't give up too early in the process because it's hard, because it's really important work. Well, any other questions?
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
When our kids have a cold or when they're sick, and we call in, are there certain requirements that they have to pass before they can come back to school? Or at what point do they have to have a COVID test to come back, that kind of stuff?
So that's a great question. Was that Maggie? Who was that? No.
This is Amber Jackson.
Amber. Thanks, Amber. Yeah, the main thing is with our COVID response, if it really, I hate to put pressure on the parents, but really we're putting pressure on the parents. If a student comes to school and has COVID symptoms, we have to send them home. And now it's a very big deal. Whether they are, they test positive or not, now we really are forcing them out of school because they've showed some of the signs. So if you keep a kid home from school and he's, you know, he has a cold. What's that? Wanda, are you talking? Anyhow, yeah, if you keep your son or daughter home from school because they're sick, and then when they are feeling better, you can send them back to school. I mean, really, that's the short answer. It really gets complicated though when they come to school sick, because now the school has a certain set of guidelines we need to follow, and yeah, it's just gets complicated. So all I would say to that is If your kid's sick, keep them home. When they feel better, send them back. Good question. Any other questions out there? Okay. Well, we'll sign off on this this episode of PTSG. And if you've got feedback for us, we'd love to hear it. You can send me an email at steve.schofield, SCHO field@ironmail.org. And we can go from there. Like I said earlier, we do have every month prepared. We've got kind of an idea for what we need to go over with parents and how things might be helpful for you. Oh, I see a question. Did I already answer this, Elisa? Do I recommend testing? If you feel like your kid is sick and they have COVID symptoms, I would recommend testing. I don't know if that was before or after we were talking about that. Okay. All right. Good question. Okay. We're excited for the year. Thanks for your participation. Let us know how we can help. Thank you, Corey, for leading that discussion tonight.
Yeah, thank you all.
Okay. Have fun.
Appreciate you.
See you. Thank you, Amber.
Hey, are you still there?
I'm still here. Yeah.
Okay. So I came in about 20 minutes